Hey guys. Hello, hello. Where's my camera? Stop video. Start video. Hey guys, hold on 1 second. Apologize. Where is my video? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me, Kiana?
What's up?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You see me though.
No.
What's up with the video? Let's stop it. And then let's turn it back on. That is interesting. I think I'm on this one right here. Well, it doesn't matter. Y'all don't need to show me. All right, Kiana. Hey, did anybody go pick up their package yesterday?
No.
Matt, we talked about you, right? He's sleeping. Hey, Lucille, you picked yours up, right?
I went to pick mine up.
How did that go? Was that okay?
Yeah, I was confused on where to go at first, but then I saw my biology teacher and she directed me to the back.
It's in the back of that Mississippi, Montana wing, like where the pickup is? Okay. How long were you in line, Lucille?
Oh, there was one car that went in front of me, which was great because I didn't know where I was going at first.
Okay. And then did you get everything you needed?
Yep.
Okay. And I'd already passed out first semester study guides. I think there's maybe a few people, but so you guys have those, you have your fun packs. So we should be straight.
Yeah.
That was good. Hold on 1 second. Let me see what. Maybe this thing is just unplugged. Boom. Hello, hello. That works. Nice. Video. I don't know what's up with this thing. Everyone's playing in here. That's what's going on. All right, bump it. All right, so then here's the plan for today. Wow. Is to go over the 2017 macro FRQ. And so why I want to do that is I think the more we just do these, you'll see the connections between the graphs. So let's do this first. And this is interesting. Interesting, Kiana. All right. You see how my hand is just sitting there? I'm moving all over. It's just frozen. So it's like, what is going on? Oh, there's my beautiful wife. All right. Why is this thing not moving? Let's do it. Let's do it for our country. Red, white, and blue. Yes. Hey, now I'm moving. See how that works? Okay. And now it's stopped. Oh, now it's moving. All right. So, did you guys get the copy of this by chance? Did you print it out? No? So I put a link. It's on the Google Class, but you don't have to. If you just want an extra sheet of paper, just go through the questions. It's going to be blank, okay? So this again, man, it's taking a while to render. Look at that. All right, this again is how they're going to do the AP exam. Now we're going to graph in this, but you're going to have to graph anyway, even though you're not submitting your answer on a graph. You will obviously on your scratch sheet of paper, you will be graphing to solve some of this stuff. So the second question, there's 2 FRQ questions they're going to give you on the exam. The second question is going to be a long one like this. And then questions 1 and 2 are going to be the 2 short ones, okay? So it can be from any topic in the first 5 units. What you'll see, especially with this first one, is they'll combine topics, okay? So I just want to make sure you understand this. And let's do it. So first and foremost, says assume that country X has an actual unemployment rate of 7% and a natural rate of unemployment. I'm gonna move y'all. Much as I like seeing you right there. Boom. So we need a sheet of paper. It's a lot easier just to write on separate sheets of paper, okay? So assume that the economy of country X has an actual unemployment rate of 7%, a natural rate of unemployment of 5%, and an inflation rate of 3%. Using the numerical values above, draw a correctly labeled graph of short run, long run Phillips curve. All right, sweet. So the first graph for 1A is going to be a Phillips curve, all right? You don't have to write Phillips curve. I'm just making sure you know what it is. And this is inflation. Down here is unemployment. Okay. And we have our long run Phillips curve. So make sure you put PC. We have our short run Phillips curve. So now we get to plot these points. We know the natural rate of unemployment right here. We know that's going to be a long run. So natural rate is 5%. So we know this is going to be 5% unemployment. Remember, it's between 4 and 6%. They just straight up just give you the number. But this country has an actual unemployment rate of 7%. That's worse, right? 7% is worse. So because it's 7%, that's higher. Unemployment increases as we go to the right. Say that again? Oh. Unemployment increases as we go to the right. So we must be out here, 7%. Okay. And now they say their inflation rate is at 3%. They didn't say expected inflation. They're not saying, well, if we were at the natural rate of unemployment, we would be at 3%. They're saying they have 7% unemployment, and then their inflation rate is 3%. Move hand. All right. So this dot right here, this point right here represents higher unemployment. And then, of course, 3% inflation. So we know that this spot, well, let's just keep reading it. But we know this intersection right here, that's where natural rate would be. I mean, I'm just saying this just as we go forward. All right. Assume the government of country X takes no policy action to reduce unemployment. In the long run, will each of the following shift left or shift to the right, shift to the left, remain the same? They also want us to talk about now the short run supply curve. So let's do our aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Now I know on the test, you're not going to have to show them you know everything and label, but it's just great practice, okay? Now, we are in a recession. We're in unemployment. And I'm doing this for teaching purposes. So unemployment on this one is right here. All right. If this is real GDP, this would be 5% as we are, excuse me, while we're increasing our output, more and more people are going to be working. So as we go to the right here, more and more people are working. So unemployment's going down. As we go to the left, we're reducing our GDP, reducing our output. We don't have the need for a lot of workers. So therefore, unemployment would be to the left over here. And remember, these are mirror images. Usually I put the aggregate demand, aggregate supply curve. Usually I put the aggregate demand, aggregate supply curve, you know, opposite, but it doesn't matter. So where is 7% on this bad boy? It'd be right here. 7%. And so let's just draw our short run aggregate supply, our aggregate demand. And this is where our price level would be, 7%. Now, some people say, do we still need to label this YF? Technically, if they gave you 5%, no, you don't have to, all right? But you know that's full employment. So again, by using these graphs, and you're going to use these graphs to help you explain the situation. Obviously, when you submit your answer online on May 21st, when you do it, you're going to be pulling pieces of it. But it's important on your scratch piece of paper to write all this. All right, so assume the country X takes no policy action. We're in a recessionary gap. In the long run, what is going to happen? I've always told you, you need to do your aggregate demand supply first, and then do the mirror image over here. So if this were first base, this were second base, this was third, let me start over. That was terrible. If this is home, this is first, this is second, and this is third. Right now we're third base. If there's no policy action, what's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is supply is going to shift to the right. Supply is going to shift to the right. And the reason is there's lower wages, lower costs. All right, we got lower wages, we have lower costs. So now businesses can afford to hire. I was just seeing all these stories of sports teams, companies that have agreed to take a pay cut so that they could remain in business. I think, I don't know what staff it was, UCLA, they decided to take a 10% pay cut and save them $500,000. That normally would not happen. When we talk about sticky wages, that's why they're stuck. No one wants to reduce their wages. Well, in order to avoid people getting fired, they're saying just pay us less. So because they're paying less, lower wages, lower cost, that's going to allow businesses, anytime you have lower cost, it allows businesses to increase their production. All right. Now, sir, why didn't AD move? Aggregate demand will only move when there's policy actions like fiscal policy, reducing taxes, or increasing government spending, or monetary policy like buying bonds. That's when aggregate demand moves. When there's no policy action, now we're talking classical econ. I know I'm combining a lot of topics, but you guys are big children now, big students, about to graduate. Oh my God. When you have, sorry, Blake, I know you're a sophomore. Aggregate demand will only affect when policy happens. But this whole long run, this is what classical believed existed. So my point is, supply, lower cost will shift to the right. So what is the mirror image to that? Well, we're right here with this one. So if this shifted down and to the right, then this is going to shift down and to the left. Okay, I should say right there. It's going to shift down and to the left. And now actually, I mean, I don't know if they're going to ask it, but inflation would even go lower. We'd be back to natural rate. So this was the current question A. We were to the right. And if they even said label it, we'll label that point A. And then it shifted, let's say label this point Z. I'm just making things up. They'll try to add stuff up, but you go from here to here on your Phillips curve. You're going from a recessionary gap, supply shifting to the right with no policy because of lower wage and lower cost. So using numerical values above, draw what we did. Assume the government of country X takes no policy action to reduce unemployment in the long run. Will each of the following shift to the left, shift to the right, or remain the same? So supply curve will shift to the right. And the reason why is there's now lower wages and lower costs. So producers can increase production. Wow, where's that at, sir? So I'm just writing the cliff notes to this. You guys can do it a little bit more. It's going to shift to the right. Why? Because now there's lower wages and lower costs, so producers can increase production. All right. What about the long questions? Do we have any questions?
Where's point B?
Where is point B?
In question 1, part A, it says label the current short-run equilibrium as point B.
Oh, my bad. I didn't even read that, Lucille. Good job. So point B would be right here.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. I've just started jumping. Always read your question. But I was going to tell you, they always label it. They'll say label it point Z, label it point B. So that's the current thing, B right there. Okay?
Right.
So short run shifts to the right. What about the long run Phillips curve? Well, the long run Phillips curve does not change. Now, they didn't ask for any explanation on the long run. See how they put explain here? They didn't put an explain here, but let me let you know why. It does not change because there's no trade-off in the long run and I'm going to put the rest of the answer right here, between unemployment and inflation. There's no trade-off in the long run between unemployment and inflation. Why? Because unemployment in the long run always goes back to the natural rate. Okay? Unemployment in the long run always goes back to the natural rate. So you can shift these things all up here. You'll have higher inflation, but you're going to have the same unemployment rate. You can have lower inflation, but you're going to have the same unemployment rate. All right? It's almost the same thing that happens with aggregate demand, aggregate supply curve, y'all. In the long run, we're going to have different price levels, i.e. inflation, but our GDP output is going to be the same. Now, can long run shift to the right? Sure, if we increase capital spending. Will Phillips curve ever shift? Technically, no. All right. All right, identify a fiscal policy action. I'm going to go a little bit faster, I'm sorry. Identify a fiscal policy action that can be used to reduce unemployment. All right, so for part C, what is a fiscal policy action? Fiscal, y'all. We're in a depression, a recessionary gap. So what would shift AD? We could lower taxes, or we could increase government spending. Okay? The key word here is fiscal. Fiscal. All right. Now would reduce. It didn't even ask us to explain it. Okay, draw a correctly labeled graph of aggregate demand and aggregate supply and show the impact on the equilibrium price level growth of the fiscal policy action. All right, we already drew ours up here. So what would happen if we do a fiscal policy? Remember, policies always move aggregate demand. So we're going to shift aggregate demand to the right. And now our price level is going to increase. And we're going to be back to, so aggregate demand shifted to the right. And it raised our price level. And we're back at the national rate of unemployment. All right. And then E. Any questions on that? Any questions on that, guys? No? Okay. Based on the change in real GDP, we don't have to do E. E is unit 6. That's unit 6. That gets into currency. And number 6 gets into currency. So technically, that would be your long FRQ. I think what they would add to it is monetary policy. So let's just make one up here. What would be a monetary policy they could do to get rid of this recessionary gap? Well, you could buy bonds. And remember, that's open market operation. So if they said, what's a open market operation you could do? You'd buy bonds. All right. And again, this is a monetary. What's another one? Lower the reserve requirement and lower the discount rate. This is Fed to bank loans. All right. And then finally, let's do this one. Well, what would that look like on the monetary policy graph? So let's do a money market graph. So you got the money supply, you got the nominal interest rate, you got the quantity of money, and then you have the demand for money. So let's say the interest rates, I mean, I could go to work here. We were saying it was 3% was inflation. If there's 3% inflation, and let's say banks want to make 9% real interest. Oh my God, it's gonna be high. What would the nominal interest rate have to be for them to make? We're gonna just make this up. I'm increasing your learning here. This is called increased learning opportunities. So I'm thinking, man, what could this nominal interest rate be? Well, let's just turn it around. If we know it's 3% inflation from up here, where are you at? 3% inflation, and they want to make 9%, what would they have to charge to make 9%? And I can't hear anybody.
12%.
12%. There you go. 12%. Because if 12% is what they charge, and there's 3% inflation, well then 12 minus 3 equals 9. Wow. I think I have too many programs open. It is so slow. 12% is the actual rate of interest, the nominal rate, minus the 3% inflation. They would really be making 9%. If inflation went up to 4%, then they'd have to increase this to 13% to make that 9. Okay. All right. I'm just saying. So what would be a monetary policy action to get rid of this recessionary gap? Well, you'd want to buy bonds, lower the reserve requirement, or lower the discount rate. The net effect of that is you want to increase the money supply. And the whole reason you would increase the money supply is to do what? Well, if you increase the money supply to here, and this was on our last test, unit 4, where Like 60% of us missed it. Once you increase the money supply, the interest rate's hanging out up here. Well, what's the problem? The problem is we have way more supply of money than the demand, right? The demand is back here. This line has moved to here now, to the right. And my pen will move now, there. So now the interest rate is going to have to fall. The interest rate's going to fall, so now it's at 10%. What does that mean? Now people will borrow money. They will increase their borrowing, which will increase C&I spending, which is going to increase aggregate demand. Okay? So by lowering the interest rate, you're giving people an incentive to borrow money. Those people are specifically consumers and businesses. And their increased spending will shift aggregate demand, increase aggregate demand. And guess what? We close that gap the same way. I mean, y'all realize that's how big time you are. You just did unit 3 and unit 4 together and a Phillips curve. So let me put this a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. All right. So that's number 1 on steroids. I added a couple questions. And by the way, I will post this on my YouTube. There's 2 other review lectures that I need to post up there. There was a problem rendering it, and I've been running around, so I will make sure those are up there and I'll label them, okay? All right, so that's going to be very similar to what you're going to get on the second FRQ. It's going to be a longer one that's going to combine concepts. Look for aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Look for, well, we're going to do a bunch of these, so we'll just keep practicing. But look for aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Look for your Phillips curve. Look for your money market. Look for your loanable funds. So, and just because I said the word loanable funds, let's do it. Let's say they wanted to go back to a fiscal policy, but the government is broke. They're in a deficit. All right. Then I'm just going to call this GB. All right. So if the government wants to get rid of this recessionary gap, and they're going to use fiscal policy, freaky, that's cool. And they're going to use fiscal policy, meaning they're going to increase spending, then where are they going to get that money? Well, they're going to borrow it in the loanable funds market. So you have the supply of loans, you have the demand for loan, which are the borrowers. You have the real interest rate. Remember, this is the loanable funds. The real interest rate, and then you have the quantity of loans. Now, we just said our real interest rate was 9%. Wow. And then however many. I don't want to make up numbers here. I'll just put Q1. Because I already made up enough, I guess. So if the government wants to do fiscal policy, that means they are going to increase government spending, but they're broke. They don't have the revenue. People aren't paying their taxes. So they got to borrow it. Where are they going to borrow it? The government's going to borrow it in the loanable funds market. And that effectively is going to raise the real interest rate. Actually, the real interest rate is going to stay the same because they are going to do what? They're just going to increase the nominal interest rate. But the point is, by doing that in the loanable funds market, we call this crowding out. Crowding out is when the government steps in front of consumers and investors who are interest sensitive. They borrow money, and because of the increased rate, now there's not an incentive to do this. There's not an incentive based on this higher interest rate. So now it's going to, even though government's spending more, consumers and investors are not. Now, I see one more beautiful just carry on. So let's call this the Kianamon special, all right? This is Kianamon special right here. All right, Maria, you're next. Sarah, Hanya, I got tons of these. if this increased the interest rate, is there a way, I don't know, for the Fed to counteract this and lower the interest rate again? Well, how do you lower interest rates? Federal Reserve up here. So could the Fed just, based on this increase, could they just go ahead and increase the money supply again? Maybe lower the reserve requirement, and that would lower the interest rate again, okay? So that's just something to think about. That's usually an extension that they do. I'm just trying to think of chains of questions that they'll do. Think of what we just did. We just did a Phillips curve, an aggregate demand, aggregate supply, a money market, and a loanable funds. That is impressive. I was going to start today with doing 6 key graphs of macro, bam. We just did our aggregate demand, aggregate supply. We did a Phillips curve. We did our money market. We did our loanable funds. We don't need our foreign exchange, although it does look like that anyway. And then our PPC curve is like that. You see how good you guys are? I mean, just give it up. Give it up to yourselves. All right. Finally, let's turn the page and let's see if we can knock out these short ones. What time is it? 11:31. We got 10 minutes, 2 apiece. All right. Assume the economy is in long run equilibrium. Assume the consumers wish to hold less money because they use credit cards. So draw a correctly labeled graph. Again, you won't be able to draw a graph, or you won't have to submit them, but you need to be able to draw graphs to answer these questions. So we're going to do our money market. Boom. We've got the nominal interest rate. We've got the money supply. We got the money demand, and we got the quantity of money, and whatever amount the money is. So assume that an economy is in long run equilibrium. So we're definitely right here. Remember, short run equilibriums are when demand can move to the left, move to the right, supply. We're here and here. This is long run. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the money market. Show the effect of reduced holdings of money. Holding cash. If we're demanding less money, how do we reflect that? Well, here's demand for money. We want less of it. It's going to go to the left. It's just going to shift down. All right. So if this was the real interest rate, I'm just notating. All right. So what happened? Before we even answer the questions, if we decide to hold less money because we don't need cash in our pockets, I'm using credit cards. Some of y'all are using Bitcoin. Some of y'all are using Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I don't know. Doing some crazy things out there. What if we demanded more money because we sold our stocks? Oh, that was the FRQ we had before. Well, then we'd increase aggregate demand. I mean, we'd increase money demand. All right. So draw a correctly labeled graph of the money market and show the effect of reduced holdings of money, reduced desire to hang on to cash, and on the equilibrium nominal interest rate. So in the short run, the nominal interest rate would decrease. Nominal interest rate decreases. All right. So based on the change in the interest rate, we just said the interest rate went down. What will happen to each of the following? So for bond prices, they always do opposite of the interest rate. So if the interest rate went down, then prior bond prices increase. These two things are inverse. If the interest rate goes up, bond prices go down. If the interest rate goes down, bond prices go up. Now, I've tried to explain this to you before. Let's just pretend this is a bond, all right? This is a bond, and I bought it at, let's make this, what am I doing? Let's make this 8%. So I bought a bond in the bond market at 8%, and I'm hanging on to it. I'm enjoying it. I'm making money. And then people desire less money, the interest rate goes down. Now let's say Eugenia wants to buy a bond. She's like, man, I'm going to put some money away. Well, now the interest rate is, let's say, 6%. So Eugenia is going to keep hers for 30 years. I'm messing your name up, Eugenia. You're awesome. She wants to buy a bond, but she's like, why am I going to buy a bond for 6%? I will pay more to get what? That 8% bond. Okay? Because in a bond market, just like stock markets, you can buy and sell at any point. You don't have to hang on to it. It's not a rule. So when the nominal interest rate went down, everyone's saying, well, shoot, I don't want a 6% bond. I will pay more for that 8% bond. It's worth it. All right? And what if we were at 6% and let's say Maria bought a 6% bond, but now the interest rate goes up to 8%. Well, now we have the opposite effect. Now Maria's like, well, shoot, I'm trying to sell my 6% bond. And Kiana's like, I'm not going to buy it. I'd rather get my 8%. So when the interest rate goes up, bond prices go down. You can't sell that 6% bond. And in this case, when the interest rate went down, wait to see how long it takes for my pen. Wow. When the interest rate went down, then it made the bond prices go up. All right. The price level and real income. This is kind of interesting. When the interest rate lowered, it has the same effect as when the Fed increases the money supply. Because the net effect is they're just trying to get the interest rate lowered. So with aggregate demand and aggregate supply, let's say we're at full employment. You don't have to write this. I just want you to see it. When the interest rate lowers, that's going to make aggregate demand shift to the right for the same reasons we talked about before. Lower interest rate, people are going to go borrow money, consumers, investors are going to spend. So if we were here, lower interest rate, people borrow money, they spend it. Now aggregate demand is going to increase the price level. So what happens to the price level? It increases. Price level increases. And the reason why is there's going to be an increase in aggregate demand. It's going to shift right. Now, real income is kind of like real, what's the word? Real interest. If the price level goes up, what's another word for price level? Inflation. So price level equals inflation for the most part. Well, if you increase, if I'm making $50,000 a year and prices go up, the price level goes up, what's happened to my real level of income? Remember we talked about this last test. It's called the inflation tax. Technically, you're eating away at this. So my real income is going to decrease. If whenever inflation goes up, you're eating away at my, oh wait, we can't see it. Come on, sir. So AD shift to the right, price level inflation. What is happening to real income? How much am I really making? If I made 50,000 and you increase prices, then you're taking away my real income. I'm really not making 50,000 if you keep raising prices. All right. All right, with the constant money supply, based on your answer to part B2, will the velocity of money increase, decrease, or remain the same with changes in determinant? So this is interesting. I'm gonna come back to see. This is in your study guide. I want you to do this one, a little homework. MV equals price times quantity. They change this sometimes. This is Zimbabwe right here. This is the money supply. This is how many times you spend money. And then this is price and quantity. This is the nominal GDP. usually if you hold velocity constant and you increase the money supply, then something over here, it's an identity, something over here has to increase. So they're saying they're going to have a constant money supply. And based on your answer part B, will the velocity of money increase, decrease, remain the same? So some over here is going to have to change. Either we're going to have to increase the quantity of stuff or the price. And we just said the price level went up. So obviously velocity would have to increase. But we'll check that one out. All right, central bank wishes to reverse the change in the interest rate. Which open market operation would they do? So the interest rate is lowering because people demanding less money. So how does the Fed raise the interest rate, y'all? They have to decrease the money supply. That's going to raise the interest rate. Okay. So now the interest rate is going to slide back up to here. And what is the open market? So if the central bank wishes to reverse the change of the interest rate, which we already said because of the decreased demand, it lowered it, what open market operation should it use? Well, what makes
selling bonds?
Say it again.
Is it selling bonds?
Outstanding. It's so good to hear you guys. I wish we could just open up all the mics, man. But I don't want to hear all you guys watching Stranger Things or whatever you're watching. All right. Yeah, you want to decrease the money supply. You want to make it smaller. So good job. The answer is sell bonds. You want to sell bonds. That will decrease the money supply. Buying bonds makes it bigger. Selling bonds makes it smaller. Well, sir, couldn't we also lower the discount rate? Sure, but that's not what they asked you, right? They asked you what open market operation would you use? All right. Last one, because I've never seen a PPC, but who knows? It's a straight time. I'm just going to draw this one right here. Assume a country is at full employment and produces two types of goods. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the production possibility curve. All right, so we got a production possibility curve. And it says with consumer goods on the horizontal, so we're going to put consumer. And capital goods on the vertical. Capital goods on the vertical. All right, so now we're going to make it bowed out. Remember, this is increasing opportunity cost. It's bowed out because these two are not the same. If we're making pizza and calzones, then it would be a constant opportunity cost because these are, they're interchangeable. That's a long word. Why do I have to pick the longest word? What's another short word? Related. Okay. Woo. All right. Indicate on a point on your graph that represents full employment and a possible combination, so where is full employment? It's anywhere on that line. So I could do my X anywhere, and that would show a little more consumer goods than capital, but that's efficient. That's productively efficient. So that takes care of A. B, assume there's an increase in the country's national savings. Oh, wow. We're flipping to loanable funds. Show a change in the real interest rate. All right, so let's go over here. So we're doing real interest rate. We're doing quantity of loans, supply of loans, demand for loans. This is whatever equilibrium rate is in the. All right. Assume there's an increase in a country's national savings. Two things you do with money: spend and save. If you spend, obviously that moves aggregate demand. If you save, it goes to a bank, and guess what? The banks now have an increased supply of funds that they can loan out. So if all y'all on my screen go get a job, and then you put it all in the bank can loan out more money. What's going to happen to the real interest rate? It is going to decrease. Do you see how we're using graphs to explain this? So I know your AP exam says it's non-graphing. You're going to submit non-graphs, but you need to be able to work these things out. Okay, so we're going to keep practicing. I will start going a little bit faster. Make sure you try these things before you come in. That way, it kind of helps to, ooh, I did that. Oh, I didn't know savings increases to the right. Yeah, savings increases to the right. All right, on the same graph from part A, show another point labeled Z that represents full employment and a new combination of consumer and goods and capital goods consistent with the increase in the country's national savings. Wow. So this is an awesome question. Why, sir? I don't see the awesomeness of it. First of all, we know we're going to stay on this line, but should we shift more towards consumer goods or should we shift more towards capital goods? This tells us everything we need to know right here. If we've lowered the real, wow, that thing went flying across the room. Y'all missed that. If we lower the real interest rate, businesses are going to spend. And because they've got great rates, they're going to spend on tools, on factories, on machines. So I would label, I can't believe I put my point X right there. I probably should have just done this, right? Just saying. Just label a point and label it X. I don't know what I was thinking. But I would say it would shift along this line. They're still both productively efficient. Either one of these are on the curve. But now we're allocating our resources more towards capital goods. Why? Well, consumers are saving money. And businesses with the lower interest rate are going to be able to buy more capital goods. Okay? So I would argue that. Referring to your answer in part C, will the long run supply curve shift to the right, shift to the left, or remain the same? You know what? This was a little doozy. I love it. So now we got to draw a third graph. This is long run aggregate supply. I really don't even have to draw anything else, but because I'm teaching you guys to be amazing. All right. Because we're focusing on more capital goods, it's an ugly color. Because we're focusing on more capital goods, then any day, fingers move, go, and move. All right. Because we're focusing on more capital goods, the increased savings, lower interest rate, made businesses spend more money. That shifted the PPC towards capital goods. That anytime we have an increase in capital stock, think about a stock room where we're increasing our factories, our machines, our tools. What about our human capital? Anytime you do that, guess what's going to happen? You're going to shift long run to the right. All right. So long run will increase right. This is 100% economic growth. Okay. That is 100% economic growth. That is a wonderful question. I mean, straight up, that has so many different concepts in there, but they're concepts that you guys know. You just have to apply them. In macro, everything is related. It's kind of like going to a family reunion. Oh my God, there's loanable funds. That's my first cousin. You know, your aggregate demand, aggregate supply, that's going to be your granddaddy because that's the major graph, right? PPC, that's your little sister. That's just a nice little graph. And then money market, that's your older brother. I'm just saying, make them do what you want. But this has everything you need. So economic growth. When do we get economic growth? When businesses spend money on factory machine tools. Think of this COVID-19. Think of the response that we've had to do with respirators and with masks. We were right here. I know it's talking about the whole economy, but how would we increase production of all that stuff? Well, businesses had to change their factories, change their machines, their tools, change their training, and they had to stop producing, like GM, whatever cars they were doing, and they had to start allocating resources towards that capital. And because money was available, it helped it. All right. So will it shift to the right, left, remain same? It's going to shift to the right. Why? That is how we get economic growth when businesses spend money. All right. Outstanding. Outstanding. We've knocked out a whole 2017 FRQ. I'm going to post another one. I'm going to post another one on Google Classroom for us to do Thursday, okay? It'll be a lot faster, but I want to make sure you guys are getting these. These are great little graphs. We've already done them, okay? But as I'm heading out, if you guys need to head out, I'm just going to put this up here for practice. We've already done these. I probably should have started with this. But make sure you have these graphs. Obviously, that's at full employment. You got to be able to do recessionary below full employment or inflation. Phillips curve we just did. Inflation rate. Unemployment. Whatever the inflation is. Let's just put that. Two goods out. Let's just put consumer. Oh, let's put capital up here. Wow, it's a big hand. All right. Z, remember, is unemployment. H is impossible unless we trade or increase our resources. A would be efficient. B would be efficient. We're just allocating more towards consumer goods. All right, money market is nominal interest rate, quantity of money. Okay, and then loanable funds. Excuse me, guys. Loanable funds would be supply and demand. I just put supply for lender, demand is the borrowers. This is the real interest rate, quantity of loans. And however many, 400 million or however many loans. Okay. So again, these are just good practice things. When you go to a restaurant and you're waiting, because now 25% of people can go starting Friday. So you go to Zio's and they got that beautiful paper tablecloth, and then they give you crayons. Just write your graphs, okay? Or when you go to Chick-fil-A, just write them on the napkins. Give them to people. Get some face masks with them. That's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna start doing that. All right, you guys are outstanding. Make sure you do your Skyward quiz tomorrow. So for my second semester online distance learning, you got to submit this through Flipgrid. Okay, I gotta get some assignments. So that's one of them. And then make sure you do your Skyward online quiz. Okay, I'll open that. It'll be open from Wednesday through. Actually, I'll probably open it later today, but it'll be open till Friday night, 11:59 p.m. All right, guys. Peace. Thank you. It is awesome seeing you guys. Take care. If you need anything, text me. Let me know. Okay. All right. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.